Okay, good evening, everyone. Okay, welcome to West Essex High School. My name's Damian Machochi. I'm the superintendent of schools. Our district, in conjunction with several other local organizations, are sponsoring tonight's program on social media. But in addition to tonight's program, there will be 5 student presentations that take place tomorrow. So this was a really big joint project that we worked together on. So I want to give a very special thank you to some organizations for their support, because together we did share the financial cost of this. We have a total of 6 presentations. Tonight's for parents, which, by the way, we are recording, and we will upload to the West Essex YouTube channel shortly after tonight. And then I will email blast that out to the whole community. So it will be available on YouTube. But I appreciate the support that we got from the organizations, because we can do a lot of great things when we combine. And we have great communities here, supportive organizations, and we did a program last month, and we're already talking about ideas and programs for next year. So thank you to the following organizations. Many of them have representatives here tonight, so I really want to try to just recognize those people. So we do have the following organizations that helped to fund this program. The Essex Fells Police Foundation, the Fairfield Municipal Alliance, and the Fairfield Police Foundation. And tonight we have here Denise Cafone from the Municipal Alliance. We have Mr. Bill Galise from the Fairfield Town Council, and they were instrumental in helping us get Fairfield on board. And I know Chief Manna from Fairfield also was very supportive of this program. Also, from the county, Liz Marquez is here. She kind of oversees all the alliances in the county. North Caldwell Municipal Alliance and the North Caldwell Police Foundation. There were 2 other organizations that helped to sponsor this event. Mr. Ken Tilton is here, who works with the Police Foundation. Chief Dewar is here from North Caldwell, and Captain Stradoff. And thank you to those organizations. Also, the Roseland Municipal Alliance and the Roseland Police Foundation, and we want to thank them as well. Last and, of course, not least, our Board of Education, who supports us on a lot of great things. And we have some Board of Ed members here tonight. Mary Wojciech, our Vice President from North Caldwell. Ray Stampone, who's one of our board members that represents Fairfield. Jill Marcus, one of our board members from North Caldwell. And Bethany Bucino, our board member from Essex Fells. We also have our 2 student assistance counselors here for the district. Mr. Tony Emmering from the high school is here, and Ms. Marie Purcell from the middle school. And they do deal a lot with social media, so they definitely were supportive of this program. Our entire administrative team will be facilitating all of the student presentations tomorrow. So all day, each grade level gets their own presentation. Grades 7, 8 in the morning, and then in the afternoon, grades 9, 10, and 11. I can say with total confidence, too, that our board and our district are very supportive of this program and all programs, because one of our main goals is to try to provide our kids with the best educational environment that we can, where students, should feel supported and safe. So that's always the main priority, is the health and well-being of our students. And as a school community, it's important that we work together. And obviously, the response to an incident is important, but what's more important is what we can do to prevent things from happening. So that's why we want to continue to do these types of programs, because we want to educate our parents, educate our kids. This way, they can make better and more mature decisions with regard to anything they're doing, and in particular with regard to social media, hence tonight's program. Okay, so let me get to a little bit about our presenter, Dr. Michael Ossett, who is a clinical psychologist and author who has worked with children, teenagers, and families over 4 decades. He is a frequent presenter, both locally and nationally, for psychology organizations, conferences, parent groups, and educators. The focus of tonight's presentation is how social media can positively and negatively affect our youth. Dr. Ossett will discuss the implications of social media on kids regarding it as both a social vehicle and its potential problems will be presented along with strategies parents can employ to enrich and protect their kids. As I mentioned earlier, we will record this event, and at a later date I will upload it to the West Essex YouTube channel and make it available to the public. So, without any further interruption, let's please give Dr. Ossett a warm West Essex welcome.
My technology here. Okay. It's a pleasure. No, it's a privilege to be here. It really is, and I appreciate all of you coming out. I'm going to be presenting for an hour. And then we're going to open it up for questions or comments, reacting to anything that I tell you or present, agree, disagree, ask for further information about it. So, you know, at that point, we'll just open it up to discussion, okay? And hopefully we're long distance with my clicker, so. Okay, so here's the flow of the presentation, just so that you know. First, I'm going to talk about what social media is, really defining it. And some of what I present, you know, there's all different levels of sophistication and knowledge sitting in the audience. I try to speak to everybody, all levels of knowledge and sophistication. So some things may sound a little basic to you, or you already know. But even if you do know it, technology, the screens, social media is so embedded in our culture that you don't even think about it. So I just want you to think about and become, you know, raise your awareness as we go through this. The benefits of social media, the dangers of social media we'll talk about, what you may not know about social media. I want to spend some time on cyberbullying, a little bit on social relationships using social media, and of course, really important, give you guys some tips and strategies and suggestions as to how to handle it with your kids. So you already know about me. Damien told me about, this is what I do. I've been doing it for years and years and years. I work with all ages, families, all walks of life. So the time span that I've been doing it, as well as the populations that I've worked with, give me a fantastic perspective on kids and what they're going through and what they're experiencing as they grow up. So I want to know a little bit about you, okay? How many of you have a child, just raise your hand, that's ages birth to 5 years old? Okay, it's so good that you're here, so good. 6 to 10 years old? Okay, how many of you have 11 to 14-year-olds? And 15 to 18-year-olds? Okay, anyone have a youngster that's over 18? Okay. Okay, now, I don't mean to embarrass you or put you on the spot. You don't have to raise your hand if you don't want to, but these questions are for me and for you to start thinking as well. How many of you have parental rules or limits with screens or social media with your kids? Raise your hand. How many of you actually check your child's social media? Read it, check it, okay? How many of you have parental control apps so that you can control their screen time and as well as the content? Okay? And how many of you have few or no rules about screen time or social media? Great. Okay. So what is social media? Social media is computer-based technology. Monitor my time here. Okay. Computer-based technology. It facilitates the sharing of ideas and the sharing of information using virtual networks and communities. The largest are Facebook, Instagram, you've heard of all these, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, and of course, Discord. Everybody here of Discord? Okay, so some of you don't know, have not heard of Discord, okay. And the difference between an app and a regular website is the owner of that app or the website, they generate the content on that website or that app. Whereas social media, it's really generated by the individual using a profile that they use, and the content is almost all exclusively driven by the user, not by the owner of the app. That's the major difference between the two. Now, here's an astonishing statistic. By next year, it's projected that there are going to be 297 million social media users in the United States. There are about 330 million people in the United States. If you eliminate 7-year-olds and younger, who tend not to be on social media, not all, but tendency not to be, and elderly who tend not to be on social media, that's almost every single person in the United States has access or uses social media on some regular basis. It is here, it's all over the place, and it's easily accessed. Okay, so a real-life friend. What is a real-life friend? Well, a real-life friend is a person that you know, a person that you like, a person that you trust. It's a person who's on your side, has your back, and supports you. A real-life friend is someone who you spend time with and you engage in activities that you both enjoy engaging in. And a real-life friend is someone that respects you and cares about you. That's sort of a common definition of what a real-life friend is. Social media and cyber friends can be anyone in the world, anywhere in the world. So when you think about the definition of friends, and this is something that I talk about with kids in my office all the time, maybe you have the same conversation with your kids. A cyber friend, does it meet the qualification as a friend? Is it really someone, it's the same criteria, someone who knows you, you you like them, and you trust them. Someone that's on your side and supports you and has your back. Is a cyber friend someone you spend time with and enjoy engaging in different activities? And is it someone that has mutual respect for you? Now, to some degree, cyber friends do meet this criteria, but certainly not to the same degree. Come on, we're far away. As true friends, okay? Kids don't really discern the difference a lot of the time between a cyber friend and a true friend. So, in all my years working with people, the relationship is the common theme in terms of one of the keys for happiness, whether it's an adult or a child. So this is a model that I've come up with. It's in one of my books also, of what is needed to have a healthy relationship. I'm talking about any relationship. It could be a partner relationship. It could be a relationship with your son, your daughter. It could be a relationship with your own parents. It's your child's relationship with friends, your relationship with friends, any relationship. For it to be a healthy relationship, I propose that you need these 3 components. You need basic love or care, depending on the nature of the relationship. There has to be some care for that individual if it's going to be, and caring about that individual if it's going to be a healthy relationship. And there has to be honesty, and there has to be mutual respect. Respect for one's bodies, feelings, time, respect for one's possessions. So when you get these 3 things going, you're going to have a healthy relationship. If any one of them is missing or weak, then there's probably going to be some conflict or difficulty in that relationship, and it can't be healthy. So when a couple meets with me for the first time, I'm sitting there listening to them, and I'm assessing in my head these 3 sort of components, and I'm trying to ascertain which one do they need help with to solidify that relationship. Now, when these 3 get going, then there's trust in the relationship, okay? And trust is sort of the glue or the core of the relationship. You have to have trust if it's going to be healthy. I want you to keep this in mind as we talk about social media and social media relationships. Oh, David, we're not going. Could you just click, can you click on my, can you click on my computer and right in the middle of, yeah.
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
And we can make that a little louder also. But the announcement is, it's a television announcement. It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? Okay. So, sorry about that. We had to put my computer up there because it wasn't working down here. So, your parents and my parents could answer, sure, he's up in his room. Do you know where your children are? It's 10 p.m. Sure, he's up in his room. But you guys have to answer this way. Sure, she's up in her room and she's all over the world. Because they have access, unbridled access with unbridled privacy to everyone and every person all over the world globally. Major difference in the child that's being brought up now. So let's first talk about the positives, the general positives about social media, okay? So first of all, we're talking about, yourselves as well as your kids, but let's focus on your kids, okay? So it gives them access, social access to their friends. That is a positive. It's good to have social access to friends. It gives them access to extended family members. It could be a cousin that lives in Australia, or an aunt or an uncle or grandparent that lives in California. So it gives them access so that they can continue that relationship, and it facilitates the relationship, even though there's geographic distance between the two of them. It also gives them access to useful, not inappropriate, but useful information. This is a benefit of social media. In addition, it becomes a platform where your child can display their specific talents and uniqueness about themselves. I'm talking about all appropriate display. So it gives them that platform to say, this is me and this is what I'm good at, okay? And this is all the positive. Well, not all the positive, but what I'm trying to say to you is it's not all bad. It has its merits, and it has its uses. So specifically for preteens and teenagers, it's an avenue to develop and practice their social skills. Kids are not born knowing how to socialize. They learn how to socialize as they grow and develop. How do they learn? Observation. They look and see. Direct teaching from parents, coaches, teachers, the adults in their life, and through practice. They engage socially, and they get feedback from their environment. This is important for you to understand. The feedback can be appropriate, positive or negative, and then they sort of hone their skills based on the feedback. And the older the child gets, the more they're developing socially through peer groups as opposed to through adult direct instruction or observation. So it also, for preteens and teens, it's their ability to express their, as I said before, their unique identity, who they are. And in teenage years, crystallizing identity is a critical and key emotionally developmental milestone to achieve. People often ask me, when does adolescence end? Is it 18? Is it 23? Is it 21? When does it end? And I don't give an age to that ending. Adolescence ends when you start to sound like your parents. That's what I say. Because then they've crystallized their own identity. They've accomplished that. They've individuated. And instead of fighting for their own identity, which is sometimes combating the parents, they sort of like identify with the aggressor kind of a thing. They identify with them, and they adopt the value system and thoughts. There's an attorney that I see, and he has an unbelievable way with words. And I've been seeing him a long time, and he started having children. He got married, and he started having children. And he came to me originally because he had a poor relationship with his father. And he wanted to work that out in his own head, even though his father was already deceased. So one day he comes in, he's talking about parenting, and he says to me, Dr. Ossett, I don't understand. I open my mouth, and my father jumps out. So I said to him, you're not a teenager anymore. Other preteen and teen benefits. Has academic benefits. You're a 6th grader, your 8th grader, your 11th grader is doing math homework, comes to problem number 4, they don't know what to do, they go on social media and they communicate with a classmate or a friend, and they get help. And they may do FaceTime with them to work through the problem together. So it has academic benefits, as well as the information that's at their fingertips. It displays the ability to display their creative talents, their individual strengths, and it's an opportunity for kids to learn about all different types of cultures, other types of families, races, ethnicities, religions. It's no longer just confined to the neighborhood and the school and the schoolyard. They're able to see this, they have exposure to this with the entire world. The other advantage is it's fun. Social media is fun for them. And when it's used appropriately, it's fun. And they have fun on it, but they have to have fun safely. It has to be done in a safe way. Okay? So, the dangers. What are the dangers of social media? When you think about it, they're not really different from when you were a teenager. When you were a teenager, I don't know how old you guys are, but when I was a teenager, there was no such thing as a cell phone. Okay, I'm probably older than most people in this audience, but when I was a teenager, we had a phone in the kitchen with a line connected, and when you got a phone call from your friend, that phone call was, your parents were privy to all the information on that phone call. Whereas with mobile phones, like cell phones, of course, they can hide and talk to their friends in complete privacy. But the point is, they have the same needs. Kids today have the same needs. They want to talk to their friends in privacy. They want to be with their friends. They want to engage in sports and activities. And they have the same interests in the opposite sex that we did, or the same sex, depending. So it's no different. It's just different in terms of how they go about it now. Very different. So a couple of years ago, there was a study done, and the conclusion of the study was that this is, by the way, pre-COVID, okay? The data was collected in end of 2018, early 2019, and it was published in 2019. The cultural trends contributing to an increase in mood disorders and suicidal thoughts among youth and loss of sleep compared to the early 2000s, they looked up from 2000 to 2005, okay? Using electronic and communication and digital media has increased dramatically. So what they're saying is that with the increase of screen time and social media, there's been an associated increase in depression, mood disorders, suicidal thoughts among teenagers, and loss of sleep. Now, I have to say the counter. There are lots of studies on the impact of screen time and social media on kids, but particularly teenagers. Some do 5 to 18 years old. The research is really mixed. Some studies say there's no effect on sleep, on depression and anxiety, on suicidal thoughts or suicidal rates, and others find significant impact. I can only tell you that clinically, and you have to take this for granted, I'm being fair to you and everybody, I see a skewed population in my office. There are people who are having difficulty, they're in conflict, they have troubles. I'm telling you, screen time does a number on the brain, I'm going to talk about that in a minute too, and it does a number on their mood, level of agitation, depression, suicidal thoughts. I see it every single day, many times a day. If we have time, 3 hours ago, I'll tell you how I saw it with a 17-year-old I was just with. So what happens is, your teenager, or if you're, young child, elementary school child, may be doing this too, they're engaged in a technologically littered terrain that's filled with this: internet pornography, cyberbullying, cell phone sexting, constant interruptions from their cell phone, right? From texts and phone calls, and more texts and alerts. They're constantly or frequently encountering sexual solicitation. I'm going to tell you about that kid right now, 17, on that. And they have the ability to be exposed to relationships with strangers. So I'll just tell you this quick story. This was 3 hours ago. And I could be here tomorrow, and And if I saw patients tomorrow, I'd be able to tell you the same thing, someone else, every single day. So he's a 17-year-old. I've known him for many, many years. Great kid, honor student. Not an active social life, but he's beginning to socialize a little bit, which is one of the reasons why he started seeing me in the first place. Really, really great kid, great family. You know, just a pleasure to work with. So he comes in today, his appointment was at 4:30, and he says to me, Dr. Ossett, I just got to tell you this. I was on Discord, and someone friended me, and I started talking to them. I said, is this a person that you know in real life? I always, try to distinguish that. Is this a person you know in real life? And he said, no. I said, so it's a cyber friend? And he said, yeah. And I said, so what did you want to tell me about that? Well, we started talking, and the conversation got a little inappropriate, to which I said, what do you mean by inappropriate? And he said, it got sexual. So I said to him, how old is this person? And he said, 12. She's 12. So as we were talking and talking, she friended him. He did not friend her. As soon as he learned that she was 12, he deleted all the texting, all the communication on the Discord, and blocked her. But we started talking about it, and I said to him, well, is she 12? Is she a she? How do you know this is not a 41-year-old man? And he looked at me, I never thought of that. This is an aware, bright kid. He never thought of that. That's the kind of exposure they get. You're going to see a video later that's going to astonish you. So I want to talk about 3 psychological processes that occur when your kids are using social media, okay? So the first is called disinhibition. There was a study done. This study was done, several years ago, but it still applies. When kids are on social media, they become disinhibited. Disinhibited meaning they say and write things that they normally wouldn't say in person. So they become less inhibited about what they're going to post and what they're going to say and how they're going to communicate. All right? What are the factors that go into disinhibition? Well, one is called dissociative anonymity. It's not really me that's writing this right now. That's the dissociative anonymity. That contributes to how they choose what to post and what not to post. Invisibility. They're invisible. No one can see them. So it gives them a little more bravado in terms of what they say. What else goes into disinhibition? Asynchronicity. There's a lag between them communicating what they want to communicate and getting the feedback from the receiver. So they send a message, and they're a little more brazen and less inhibited because there's not an immediate feedback. The person isn't standing in front of them, so it's easier for them to say things that they normally wouldn't say. Then there's something called solipsistic introjection. It's an interesting thing. They found that what kids do is when they receive a message from somebody, they assign sort of a persona to that person. In their own head, they make this person out to be who they want them to be. And oftentimes, that erodes the authority figure. If it's an authority figure or an adult, they don't make them an adult. They're equal to them. That disinhibits them as well. They also have an exaggerated sense of self. You'll see some slides on that in a minute. Okay? And there's no authority figure overseeing them or listening in. So it's not like they're in the back of the classroom and a teacher can hear, or on the playground and the aide or the teacher can hear, or they're in your dining room and you can hear. No one is monitoring, no one is listening. That enables them to be a little more brazen, a little more magnifying their sense of self, disinhibited. So what's happened is, this is the only world that your kids know. They do not know a world without screens. It's the only world they know. And you're going to see with the other 2 psychological processes why this happens, but their moral compass is off. Their moral compass may not be off in the real world, in interactions with real life, but it's off when it comes to online behavior. Now, some of you may be sitting there saying, not my child. I know my child. My child would never do something like this or that. And I'm telling you, I hope it's not your child. I see really, really great kids from really, really phenomenal, fantastic families, and those kids get into trouble. There's police officers here, they'll attest to it. They know. I see kids getting arrested. They don't, for example, sexting, okay? So a kid asks his girlfriend to send him a partially nude or nude picture. She sends it to that 16-year-old. That 16-year-old then sends it to his friend. That 16-year-old just committed a crime. They don't know that. They just hit send. They don't know. And I've had kids arrested who have done that. So it's the only world they know. It's a warped sense of moral compass that they have. And why is that? Now we're getting to the invisibility part. What you see on social media is not always what you get. Here's this older teenager having a great vacation in the Bahamas. Yeah, right. You don't see that part where she's about to be attacked by a shark. At the beach with my handsome dude. Attractive young woman at the beach, having a great time. Want to see the real picture? People depict or project a better life than they really have on social media, but you only see this part. Your kids only see this part. You know what an influencer is? Raise your hand if you know what an influencer is. Okay. So an influencer is someone who has usually an Instagram account, some account on social media, and they post things, and they have millions of followers. And they're influencers because whatever they promote or project, the followers buy that product or emulate that influencer. Danielle Bernstein is an influencer. By all accounts, probably pretty attractive, most people would find, right? Okay. See this picture? That's the real picture. Let's see if I can get this. Okay. See, the middle here is not the same middle here. Her complexion is darker in the picture that she posted on Instagram. Her eyes were made more attractive. She uses, and they all do it, they use a sophisticated Photoshop program, and they take pictures that the press has taken of them, or paparazzi, or themselves, and they don't post that picture, they doctor it, and then they post this picture. Okay? Look at the difference. You may say it's subtle, but her midriff is not the same as the picture that was posted on Instagram. Even, her face is doctored up. Even the blouse is made to print up using Photoshop. It's not, what you see is not always what you get. So what happens is your kids are looking at slices of people's lives, and sometimes it's a magnified projection or post. So, but they don't know that. They only see the magnified. They only get what they see. They don't understand that there's a lot more behind it. And then what happens is, when we talk about the effects on them, but just jumping ahead a little bit, they start thinking of them, comparing themselves to what they're, I'm sorry, am I in your way? Comparing themselves to what they're seeing online. And it could be people that they know from school or the neighborhood, or it could be people they don't know, or it could be famous people.
Here's the thing, the world we live in isn't real. Social media isn't real. And by design, social media rewards us for showing our best life. The edited, posed, champagne, Michelin star, holiday, orchestrated best angle of our life, the highlight reel. But you don't ever see real life, the 99% of our lives, the behind the scenes, the unglamorous, unfiltered, day-to-day, bland normality. And you end up comparing your behind the scenes to other people's fake highlight reel and using others as a mirror or benchmark for how you should look, how successful you should be, or how you should live. These fake comparisons will only serve to make you feel inadequate and inferior to something that isn't even real. Research continually shows that comparing your life to someone else's creates envy, low self-confidence, low self-esteem, and depression.
Can you only hear the words, or is it okay, even in the back you could hear? Great, Okay, so we have the disinhibition that your kids experience when they're posting online, and we have the invisibility. You don't really know what's the true story in terms of what they're experiencing or viewing. And then we have this process, which is really, really critical for you to understand. Desensitization, normalization, habituation. So when you go swimming in cold water, okay, I mean, I don't like swimming in cold water. When you enter that cold water, the water touches your skin, and then the neurons, the central nervous system, starts to engage, and it sends messages to your, it sends messages to your brain. And the brain says, uncomfortable, pain, I don't like this, this is not good. What happens after a few minutes if you stay in the water? Anybody, what happens? Yeah, you get used to it. Does the water temperature change? It's still freezing cold water. What happens is the brain has the ability to adapt and adjust to what's called noxious stimuli, unpleasant stimuli entering the brain through the neurons, the nervous system. So you get used to it. That's called, you get desensitized to it. So what was initially uncomfortable becomes okay, normal and okay. Your kids are bombarded. Did anyone here? I've spoken here a few years ago. Anyone attend that? You did? Oh, I can't use the same jokes then? Okay. No. If you saw that presentation, that's on screens in general. I really spent a lot of time on, there's a bombardment of messages that your kids are exposed to. Passively and actively. You know, they seek it as well as it just happens. In that presentation I gave a couple of years ago, there's a shot of billboards that you're driving by. You never even notice them. They're so inappropriate, and your kids are exposed to that. They're bombarded with lots of messages on social media. Inappropriate language. They're bombarded with perfect bodies. They're bombarded with the way people treat one another, specifically the treatment of females. They're bombarded with with sexual messages, violence, whether they want to see it or not, racism, anti-authority, everything. Bombarded. So the process of desensitization takes hold with your kids, like this.
Where texting, status updates, and actual conversation in graphic form have become the norm.
If I had to say how many guys had porn apps on their phone, I would guess 8 out of 10.
These are two 12-year-old girls, by the way. Okay? Look like great kids, right? They look like great kids. If I had to say how many guys had porn apps on their phone, she said, which 8 out of 10, okay? No, she didn't do any research on that, but you know, clearly they know about porn apps, and they know guys that have porn apps, and they're 12 years old. You're going to see them in a second also with something else they said. So what you get used to, inappropriate language, mean comments, what you get used to, posts about other people, you get used to that, you get bombarded with it, it's frequent, it's every day. What you get used to is people sending inappropriate pictures. What they get used to is revealing personal information that may not be appropriate to reveal for the public. And they get used to violence. They become desensitized to all of these things and more. I want you to, anybody here old enough to remember the Flintstones, the Hanna-Barbera? Okay. So they lived in a town called Bedrock, the Flintstones. It was a Hanna-Barbera cartoon, okay? So these two same girls, listen to what they sing at the end of this video.
Of sexy ads, reality TV shows, and music videos.
I can make your bed rock.
Call me Mr. Flintstone, I can make your bed rock.
Call me Mr. Flintstone, I can make your bed rock. The lyrics to a song that they're singing. And they're singing it almost mindlessly. But think about the implications of that line. Call me Mr. Flintstone, I can make your bed rock. You know, it's very sexual, but it's very subtle. And you hardly notice it. In fact, I didn't notice it until about the third time I watched that video. And was using it for a different reason. I realized this is the real reason. So it's that exposure, bombardment of messages that just becomes normal, normal, normal. So this is the process that your kids experience on social media. What becomes familiar, what becomes common, becomes familiar. What they commonly get exposed to, they get very familiar with. What becomes familiar becomes normal. And what becomes normal becomes acceptable. But it may not be acceptable or appropriate. It's just that they become familiar with it, and it becomes usual. An interesting thing, when people come into my office for the first time, my therapy office, I usually have 4 or 5 chairs out, and I always follow them in. I don't take the chair. They can sit in any one of those chairs. Whatever chair they sit in the first time they enter the office, that's the chair they will sit in every single time they come back. If it's 2 times or 100 times, they always sit in that chair. If you were in a classroom or went to college and there wasn't assigned seating, you sat in a chair the first time in that lecture class, that's probably the same seat you sat in every time. Why? People love familiarity. It makes them feel comfortable. It makes it feel acceptable and normal. Well, we're talking about bombardment of inappropriate messages that your kids are exposed to using social media all the time. And then we have the overuse. In this case, it's the overuse of texting. Nope. We lost it. Normally I have my computer up here, so if this happens, I could just scroll quickly. David, can you manually click on top on that video in the middle of the video? Because my clicker's not reaching it. There you go.
G-morning, sunshine. Wakey, wakey. Text me back. Hey, did you tell your parents about us? Let's skip first period together. Did you get all my texts? Is practice over yet? Where are you at? Are you with your friends? That's L-A-A-A-A-M-M-E-E-E. Capital X, lowercase o, capital X, lowercase o. I love you. JK. I hate you. JK. Are you ignoring me? We're in a huge fight right now. Is this something I did? I can see your lights on. I'm coming over. What do you dream about? Me? I'm lonely. Holla back. Holla back. Let's try something new. Nude pics. Send me some. Text me.
Overdoing it. Okay, dangers. We're talking about dangers. Dangers and the inappropriate, the difficulties with social media and kids. So this next video, I hope none of you have done, but if you haven't done this, I'm sure the thought has crossed your mind to do it, okay? But what it does is it creates a tremendous amount of parent-child conflict. Screens in general, gaming, social media. Tremendous amount of conflict. This is an issue that I probably hear about 2 or 3 times a day, about some conflict between a parent and a child.
Okay, today I'm going to show you how to do the mind bender trick. Now, this is cool. It just requires just a little bit of preparation.
There you are. Okay, I've been asking you to do the dishes for 2 hours. Okay?
5 minutes.
No, not 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
No, you've had 2
5
hours.
minutes.
No.
5 minutes.
No, that's enough.
5
No,
minutes.
No. Now.
5 minutes.
Now.
Oh dear. Okay, I'll show you how to do that trick some other day.
Can you relate? You don't have to raise your hand for this, but I want you to think about the kind of battles you're having with your youngsters, okay? About getting off. I can't get off. We're in the middle of a game. I'm going to ruin it for everybody. 5 more minutes. Give me 15 more minutes. All of my friends are allowed to be on as long as they want. I see heads going like this. So social media causes problems in parent-child relations and also the climate of the family. Sometimes it takes over in terms of these conflicts. They want to be on these screens so often, almost always. Last study was teenagers, 13 to 18, spend an average of 7 hours a day on screens. If you take away sleep, that's almost half their waking life. So they want to be on screens, and they fight you and battle you to be on screens. And social media is a big part of that. One of the apps, common apps that's used is called Bark. I don't know if any of you have heard of it, but it's a parental control app. And what Bark does is it enables you to control when Wi-Fi goes on and off in your home. It controls what apps they can download or not download. It could even control and give you alerts for content, inappropriate content. It's a very common app. There's a woman that works for Bark, and she sort of did this informal experiment, okay? You know, David, could we raise the volume for this one? Because it's very important that they hear what is said on this. Thank you.
I never thought I would be chasing child predators. It was 2 years ago when our team intercepted conversations between a 12-year-old girl and a 40-year-old pedophile. He wasn't just talking to her, he was abusing her, coercing her, collecting images and videos, and no one in her life, her parents, sixth grade teacher, or friends, knew what was happening. I work for a tech company that uses artificial intelligence to detect issues like grooming and sexual predation, and this is something we see constantly. These abuses are occurring quietly and mostly go unreported, and we want parents to know exactly what we know about what happens online. So we made a plan.
A man has been arrested for allegedly raping a 15-year-old that he met over Snapchat.
Instagram has become the #1 social
TikTok
media
is
site.
at the top of the free download
We've also
chart.
seen firsthand the predatory symbiotic relationship that exists between Instagram and Snapchat.
We would create a fictitious 15-year-old girl, complete with a believable social media identity, put her online, and document how long it would take for a predator to approach her. Then we built a story around her, a history, a family, a social circle. Libby was born in 2004 and is a sophomore who recently moved to Indiana. We created multiple online accounts for Libby, prominently displayed her age, and posted typical teen content. We even created virtual friends for Libby who would comment on her posts. With everything in place, we would launch the project, give it a few months, and see if anyone would buy it. So we hit the button, and Libby went live. Within the first hour of posting on Libby's accounts, 7 adult men contacted her. By the end of 9 days, that number was 92. The conversations ranged in severity from making sexual comments to sharing and requesting explicit photos and videos to manipulation and threats. The onslaught was so massive, it took 5 of us playing Libby full-time to keep up. Would a 13-year-old face the same barrage of predators? A 12-year-old? How young could it possibly go? The graphics team transformed me into 11-year-old Bailey. We launched our 11-year-old persona online.
444 and go. One like from a guy whose profile photo is a penis.
So let's say 1 minute and 7 seconds. We have a message request.
Although sorry, 2 more requests just came in. How much time? A minute and 40 seconds?
Yeah. How old are you? You go to the profile, you know that is a child. It also says in the profile that the child is in 6th grade.
Another one.
It's just lighting up, like the inbox is just boom, 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 boom.
See what they did? It sounds muzzled to me. Can you hear all the words? So they created a 16-year-old sophomore, and within a minute or two, she starts getting predators. I think by the end of the week, there were 92 inappropriate contacts. And they said, well, What if it's an 13-year-old, or 12-year-old, or 11-year-old? So they photoshopped her to be an 11-year-old, created a profile, put it online, and within a minute and a half, someone's stalking her already. This is just, it doesn't happen all the time, but they were willing to wait 6 to 9 months for this experiment. They needed to wait 90 seconds. It's unbelievable. I remember when I first, publishing my first book, Facebook was just coming on the scene, and both my publisher and my literary agent said, you have to have a Facebook account. That's the way things are going to be sold, okay? So I created a Facebook account. So I'm, at the time, out of high school 20 years, 18 to 20 years. So I post my profile, sign on to my account. Within 30 seconds, I get an inbox message. Hi, my name is Mary Smith Jones, the maiden name and the married name. I don't know if you remember me or not, but we went to high school together, and when you were 16 and I was 15, you said something mean to me. This is within 30 seconds. So first of all, I went to a very small, private high school. You knew everybody. I have no idea who this person is. I have no idea saying anything mean. I wasn't a mean kid, but you say things sometimes that hurt people's feelings inadvertently. So I texted my brother, who graduated a year behind me, and he would have known. He doesn't know who she is either. No idea who this person is. But the point is, within 30 seconds of me signing on, and this is, 20 years ago, within 30 seconds, she found me, saw me, and then sent me a message. So I wrote back to her. I apologized. I said, I'm sorry that I hurt your feelings. I hope things went well for you in your life, blah, blah, blah. And she wrote back, well, you were an adolescent boy at the time, so it was okay. So we made okay. So I want to talk about social relationships. Your kids are communicating, and these are social relationships in social media. So how do you communicate? We communicate with verbal information and using nonverbal information. Verbal is the message is sent with words. Nonverbal is sent with facial expressions, body posture. Anything that's not a word is a nonverbal message that's sent, and we send them in our messages. And some research indicates that 60% of every message sent is nonverbal. The real message is really nonverbal, not verbal. When I say CMC, that means computer-mediated communication. Instead of saying that all the time, I'll just say CMC. That's anything written on a device, an electronic device, a tablet, a cell phone, a computer. That's CMC, okay? So it's sort of a new nonverbal with CMC. The lack of response, when your kids text somebody and they do not respond back, that creates a feeling, or they post and there's no response. That non-response sends a message to your child, which may be a very hurtful message. The timing of the response, how quickly they respond, sends a nonverbal message. The time of day. If your 15-year-old starts to date this other 15 or 16-year-old, and the other person, 3 o'clock in the morning, sends snaps them, that time of day, 3 a.m., may be sending a message to your child in a positive way. He or she's thinking about me. This is good. Okay. The use of caps, exclamation points, emojis, they all send messages in CMC. So why do I tell you this? Because you can't always accurately read nonverbal communication. So it leads to misinterpretations that make your child feel badly. It leads to hurt feelings and angry feelings. So, this sentence says, a woman without her man is nothing. So it says women are nothing without men. So before the females in the audience start attacking me, I want you to read this sentence. This sentence says, a woman, without her, man is nothing. So this sentence says, men are nothing without women. All I did was, see this comma here? This comma? I moved it over here. All I did was move the comma. It completely inverts the meaning of the message. It's the opposite message by the comma. So here's my question. Are your kids using punctuation in their posts? Appropriate punctuation? How are other people interpreting what they're saying non-verbally in terms of the CMC? It gets very confusing. So let's kind of sum up. Dangers of social media. Socially, it creates, and personally, it creates anxiety in kids. They can become depressed. The FOMO, I'm fear of missing out, and I am missing out. They see their friends posted, they all went to the movies, they didn't include me. And they see it. They see it on social media posts. Social rejection occurs on social media for kids. Personally, it can create low self-esteem. They're comparing themselves to what they see online, whether it's real or not. They compare themselves. Personally, they're exposed to online predators. That's a danger. Academic failure is part of overuse of social media. They neglect their studies, don't do their homework, or rush to do their homework because you have a rule. You can't go on your screen until you finish your homework. So they finish the homework quickly, and they do a lousy job at it. Poor family relationships. That's the mother slamming the laptop down when her child was not getting off to do the dishes or whatever. Physically and medically, social media can cause problems for kids. Sleep problems, for one. You know, that blue light affects the brain in terms of sleep. Here's something else that's astonishing in terms of medically how screens and social media can affect your kids medically. There was a study done a couple of years ago. When someone's an addict, let's say they're addicted to cocaine, the drug creates in the brain an excess of a chemical called dopamine. So dopamine is produced when they do the cocaine. Interestingly, the cocaine in the brain makes them want the cocaine even more. So it's a vicious cycle. The addict uses cocaine, creates dopamine. The dopamine says, get more of that stuff. They do more. And it goes round and round and round. Now, the drug dealer, they'll take advantage of that. They'll get them hooked. They'll give them freebies to get them going. They'll make themselves visible and accessible. A lower price at first, and they gradually raise the price to get the addict hooked. But that's not the part of the study that's interesting. The part of the study that's interesting is they found, this research group found, that the same amount of dopamine is present in the brain with a heavy screen user. And that dopamine causes them to want the screen again and more. The same as they wanted the cocaine as an addict. So it's that same vicious cycle. They're on your screen, their screens. Dopamine is produced. The dopamine says, get more of that, get more of that. They want to be on the screens more. The drug dealer, in this case, is the owner of the app, the social media app. They hire a slew of what are called attention engineers. They're digital coders that create ways to keep your kids on screen or to draw them to the screen. Flashes on their screen. You haven't been on TikTok in about 2 hours now. Oh, you like this video on YouTube, you'll like this one also. So they're enticing your kids to go on more and more and more. And it's that vicious, vicious cycle. And it really becomes a problem. And there's even a diagnosis of internet addiction now. In the last sort of Bible of psychiatric diagnostic categories. So you can become physically addicted to screens as well as psychologically. Then you have more dangers. You have athletes, musicians, artists, famous people posting all the time, having these glorious lives, and your child is comparing him or herself to them, and they may start having body image problems. Why doesn't my body look like that? Creates eating disorders, makes them feel inadequate or inferior. My life is not as good as that. And it also creates, oftentimes, unrealistic expectations for them. When they're exposed to these people that, for example, I often hear about YouTubers that are gamers, and they have millions of followers, and all their video is just them playing the video game. And your kids are watching these over and over and over again. And the YouTuber is getting paid large sums of money. And a lot of them say, I'm going to be a YouTuber. And, you know, I see people in the audience going this because their childs have, and it's as likely as becoming a professional athlete or a rock star. Yes, it happens, but it's not realistic. So when kids present that, I always say, that sounds really exciting. What's your plan B? So let's talk about the plan B. But they have these expectations. If no one's saying that to them, they'll stop doing their math homework. You know, does it happen? Yeah, I have one patient, I used to, you know, talk with his teachers all the time when he was in middle school. He was a phenomenal football player, really gifted athlete. Never did his homework, didn't pay attention to class. I'm going to play in the NFL, Dr. Ross said. I don't need that stuff. Well, guess what? You know, he managed to get through high school. He never played in the NFL. He played 11 years in the NBA. He made it. He did make it. Went to a great D1 school and became a professional athlete. But for every one of those, that's the only thing your kid sees. They don't see the millions and millions that don't become successful at their sport or their creative endeavor. You don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what you don't see. How are we doing on time? Good, okay. So I want to talk a little bit about cyberbullying.
And I was bullied because I'm fat. My name is Miliano, and I was bullied because I'm gay.
Gay, fag, stupid.
Words can kill. And words on social media can kill. And they do kill. I don't know.
It has happened again. There are reports this morning that a 16-year-old student in Washington State killed himself after being bullied and harassed by students. It is the latest tragedy.
They hurt. So what is cyberbullying? Cyberbullying it's willful, it's purposeful, it's harmful, it's repeated, and it's inflicted using devices. That's what cyberbullying is, basically. And the psychological effects of cyberbullying are similar to regular bullying, street yard, schoolyard bullying. The only difference is the internet and cell phones, they're open 24/7. They're not restricted to being with the person. They could be bullied, and a bully can bully 24/7, round the clock. It makes it more pervasive, more dangerous, more hurtful. These are astonishing facts. So about up to 40% of kids are bullied, are cyberbullied, I mean. About 20% of them are bullied more than once. 9 out of 10 middle school kids, 9 out of 10, this was a research study, 9 out of 10 middle school kids have at least had their feelings hurt online. Not bullied per se, but nasty, mean things were said about them. 75% of kids visit websites that bash other kids. Girls are twice as likely as boys to be predators as well as victims to cyberbullying. 20% of those cyberbullied think about suicide. So it creates these thoughts in your kids' heads. Adults don't have the ability to overhear or see the cyberbullying at all because they're doing it in privacy. That's a major difference between bullying and cyberbullying. Many adults don't even have an idea that it's happening to their child or that their child is being the bully. Why do kids cyberbully? They're angry. They're frustrated. They want revenge. They think it's entertaining and funny. Kids cyberbully because they're bored. They want to build their own self-esteem because they have low self-esteem. They have an intolerance for different. If a kid is different from them in any way, they're struggling with their own identity in their teenage years. So it becomes a threat. Different becomes a threat to them psychologically, so they have to put that person down. They can't tolerate different. Adults are like this too sometimes. It creates low self-esteem. I mean, they have low self-esteem, and that's why they're cyberbullying. And sometimes they learn it from their family behavior, parents, siblings, and they observe the cyberbullying. So there's mean and there's bullying, but they're both equally harmful to your kids. One is just being mean and saying hurtful things is not as systematic as cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is really more of an attack of the person with the ambition of controlling the person or embarrassing them in front of others. But even mean comments on social media that your kids may be making, they make threats, they spread rumors about kids. They can be physically attacked after being cyberbullied by other kids or them. They're verbally attacked. And then there's purposeful exclusion. So they're excluded. They tell other kids not to be friends with them. So they're teased, they're name-called, there's sexual comments, they're taunted, they threaten to cause harm, and you're sitting there saying, oh, my child would never do that. I sure hope so. I'm taking my jacket off, I'm getting warm. Excuse me. So, of course your child would never do that, and I hope they don't, and they aren't. But do you know? Do you really, really know? We talked about this already. Okay. So what do you do about cyberbullying as a parent? Well, 3 things. You want to teach them prevention, you want to teach them coaching, you want to coach them, and you want to give them tips. Prevention. I think you should be talking to your kids and saying to them, today, when you go to school, I want you to say hi to one person that you may see in your class or cross paths in the hall that you normally don't say hi to. Just give them a smile, say hi their name, and keep walking. You don't have to have a conversation. Just say hi. Do you know what that means to certain kids that feel lonely and isolated in school and socially have difficulty? When one kid just says, hi, Mary, and keeps walking? Prevention of cyberbullying, prevention of hurt feelings. This is something, of course, I love kids, and there's so many things that kids do that I'm so proud of. In particular, the last 5 to 7 years, the way kids are handling homosexuality of their peers, it's unbelievable. The acceptance is unbelievable. I'm very proud of them for that, okay? But one thing I'm not proud of them for is, if there's a kid sitting alone in the cafeteria, what's the harm? How much effort does it take to go over to that kid and say, hey, why don't you sit with us? Why can't they just extend themselves? They see the person is lonely and alone, maybe even feeling embarrassed, ashamed. Extend yourself. We're talking about character development here. And I want your kids to be on the lookout for someone who's hurting. Extend themselves to someone who's hurting. They may be being cyberbullied. They just may be shy and don't know how to initiate conversations or social relationships. So have your kid do that with them. Have them compliment someone in class that they normally wouldn't say. After someone gives a presentation, you're leaving class, have your child make sure they mention, hey, Charlie, that was really, really great. Or, I like your new jeans. Compliment, positive compliment, not criticism and correction and attack. Teach your kids to just do something nice, to be caring. So some of your kids may be bystanders. They may see bullying going on. They may see it online, cyberbullying going online, and they observe it because it's posted in social media. Being a bystander is not doing nothing. Being a bystander is doing something. And what it's doing, you're contributing to that cyberbullying. You are enabling it to occur. So, when I work with kids about this issue, and what I'd like you to do with your kids is, if they tell you about some kid that's being bullied or cyberbullied, and they're not doing anything about it, you have to coach them. And their silence is unacceptable. It contributes. So you have to coach them to do something about it, to help prevent it or stop it from happening. And that helps the victim feel less hopeless, less helpless. You're going to see a video at the very end that demonstrates this. You want your kids to, if your child is being bullied, bullied or cyberbullied, you want them to tell an adult, you or a trusted adult. It could be a grandparent, an uncle, an aunt. It could be a guidance counselor or a teacher. But they can't keep it secret. Your child should never forward hurtful messages. They're contributing to the cyberbullying if they do that. They don't think anything of it. They just like send it off because they think it's funny. So this is what I wish would happen if you watch this video. That video gets me I've seen it 100 times. It gets me every single time. It only takes one kid to make a big difference like that. It only takes one kid. Let that kid be your kid. Why don't you teach them that if you see anything online or even in the schoolyard that's inappropriate, even if it doesn't involve them, to report it to you so that you can help do something about it. So if your child is cyberbullied, you have to talk about this before they're cyberbullied, because if they're cyberbullied, you have to tell them, don't delete anything, block the account of the person that's bullying them, don't respond, don't defend, don't fight it with the cyberbully. You have to teach them to tell an appropriate adult about what's happening. They can't. You have to let them know they'll never get in trouble, and they shouldn't be ashamed, and that they don't deserve to be treated that way, which is what the other thing you want to do if your child is cyberbullied or treated nastily in any way. Generalize it to any situation, not just social media. But you have to teach them what's called self-talk. Self-talk is feelings come from our beliefs, what we think and what we believe about ourselves and the world. Some of those beliefs are not true, but yet they still create a real feeling in us. So if I said to you, there's a unleashed hungry tiger in this room right now, ready to pounce and eat somebody, if you really believed that, your feeling would be fear, scared. So the thought, the belief, creates the feeling. So when they're cyberbullied, the thoughts that they're going through their head is, I'm worthless, I'm hopeless, I'm helpless, nobody likes me, I'm a loser. And that creates terrible feelings about themselves. So you want to create positive self-talk with them if they're cyberbullied. You don't deserve to be treated this way. Teach them to say, I don't believe this about me. This is not true about me. And you give examples why it isn't true, to challenge the irrational, negative belief. I have other people in my life that do love me and care about me. So they have to learn this dialogue inside their heads so they don't start thinking about suicide or become depressed. You have to teach your kids when you first give them social media, or if they have it already, you have to sort of, reaffirm this, to be very careful what they post. Choose carefully their words, choose carefully what they say. This is really hard because adults don't do this either. I do it all the time. You must, the CMC, before you hit send or post, you must reread it, proofread it, and edit it. But even beyond that, I read it as if I'm the receiver of the message, the CMC message, to make sure that I'm not sending anything that might be misinterpreted. And of course, if just one spelling error, like that comma that was moved in that other example, changes the whole meaning of the message. So you have to teach your kids to be very careful about what they're posting. You want to create a trusting relationship and make sure they know who the people in their life, the adults in their lives are that they can trust. So if they are cyberbullied, they can come to that person and confide in them. You want to encourage them to show you what's happening online and what texts they're receiving and what CMC they're receiving on social media, especially bullying messages. Encourage them to show you if they're feeling uncomfortable about anything. And again, let them know you're not going to get in trouble. You're doing nothing wrong. Make sure when you give them social media, or if they have it already, that privacy settings are set. If you don't know how to do it, find someone that knows how to do it in terms of the privacy settings. So that my 17-year-old, a few hours ago, he will not be contacted again in Discord because I had him change his privacy settings. By that, he was contacted by the 12-year-old. He didn't contact the 12-year-old. Okay, just have like 5 to 7 more minutes. Just bear with me, okay? So another thing parents can do is modeling. Your kids copy what you do. They see, they imitate. Good, bad, appropriate, inappropriate. So positive role models do this. They treat others with care. They treat others with consideration. They have respect for bodies, feelings, time. You model a positive work ethic. You model that you're human and you make mistakes and that's okay. You model that you have strong convictions sometimes, even when it's unpopular with your friends, that you stick by your convictions, that you're flexible and understanding, that you manage your responsibilities well. You model that you respect the rules of society. And you model that when you know you can't handle something on your own, that you go to someone that can help you with that problem. That's all positive modeling. So don't cringe. But this is subtle, inappropriate modeling that lots of parents do, and they think nothing of it. They text while they're driving. Your kid's sitting in the back seat. They'll talk on their cell phone without using Bluetooth while they're driving. They'll take their 15-year-old, or you will take your 15-year-old, to an R-rated movie. They may not be ready or appropriate to hear or see that R-rated movie. But you're breaking a rule, a societal sort of guideline. Lots of parents provide alcohol for their teenagers, for their parties. Lots of parents, even though there's a rule in the house, we don't bring our cell phones to the dinner table and we don't talk on our cell phones. They talk on their cell phones during dinner. Poor modeling. They lie about their kid's age where they want to get them on a carnival ride or buy a less expensive ski lift ticket. Poor modeling. So be careful. Some of these things you just do, you do automatically, but you are modeling some very, very significant sort of rules that you're breaking. So these are questions that you should be asking your kids. Because you want to get, and I do this all the time with kids, you want to get them thinking. Everything is automatic. Remember, they're bombarded. Everything is automatic, so you've got to get them to stop, which is what I'm hoping I'm doing with you guys today. Stop and think about all this stuff, because it's so automatic, embedded in our lives. You want to ask your kids, define a friend for me. Define what a friendship is. You want them to think about that. Ask them, how would you spend your free time if you didn't have a cell phone or a video game platform or a computer? What would you do? This question they have such problems with. They really don't know. How does having social media contribute to your life, and how does it take away from your life? What are the positives and what are the negatives? They don't think about these. You want to get them to consciously think about it, because maybe it'll help guide them when they do go on and the amount of time they're on. People ask me all the time, at what age should a child have a smartphone? And my answer is this: I don't have an age. A smartphone is a privilege. Social media is a privilege. It's not a right. It's a privilege. So people get privileges when they're mature enough to handle them and responsible enough to handle them. So the age is when you believe they're mature and responsible enough to handle that particular privilege you're giving them, you give it to them. 17-year-olds, age of 17, they meet all the criteria, they get a driver's license. Then they start getting speeding tickets. Driving is a privilege. So the state of New Jersey says, you have X amount of points on your license. We are now taking that license away. That privilege is now revoked. It's not a right to drive, it's a privilege. You abuse a privilege, you lose the privilege. So here's the big finish. It's the social media 10 tips for parents. 1, I think you should be setting time limits for all your kids. I don't care how responsible they are. Set time limits and content limits using apps or directly monitoring their posts. Have their passwords and IDs and passwords for every single social media app they have, so you can go on and observe what they're doing, and you intermittently will check that, okay? That whole balance thing there. So see, there's a plate spinner, right? So those plates are staying up with centrifugal force, right? Each one of those plates represents a piece of your child's life. The plate on the left is maybe his or her friends. Next plate is academics. Next plate is family life. Next plate is self, time for self. And you too, you have plates in your life. If you don't attend to all those plates and keep attending to them, one will wobble, fall, and crash. Balance, balance, balance. Real estate, the most important factors in investing in real estate is location, location, location. The most important thing in happiness, balance, balance, balance. You want to teach your kids balance. If they're spending an inordinate amount of time on any one thing in their life, something else is going to fall and crash. So make sure that they're balancing their time and their focus and attention. You want to monitor through direct observation. I mentioned that already. I mentioned this too. It's not an automatic. Don't get it in your head and make sure they have it in their head. It's not an automatic for them to have the social media or screens. It's a privilege. It is not a right. If the privilege is abused and they're not handling it maturely or responsibly, it's taken away. They lose it. And I mentioned this earlier too. Assess their sense of responsibility and maturity before you give them privileges, such as social media. Make sure that you're relatively confident after your coaching and tips and tutoring that they're going to handle it well and not inappropriately. Don't assume that they know what's right and wrong, what's appropriate and inappropriate. Their moral compass, I said at the beginning, is off when it comes to social media. It's not the same as when you see them at the dinner table or hanging out with their friends. It's different, and not always positively different. As a parent, you need to stay current and in the loop. I asked, raise of hands, who knows about Discord? Who ever heard of Discord? How do you know? Do you know how Snapchat works? What do you know about TikTok? Did you ever see TikTok? You've got to stay in the loop. You've got to have knowledge of what they're exposed to, because you want to impart your parental values and family values. You don't want the internet to dictate the morals of your child, but if you don't know what they're exposed to, then you don't know what to challenge. You want to promote that climate of communication so they feel comfortable coming to you when when they're exposed to something that they're uncomfortable with or they see this is inappropriate. You've got to tell them in advance, this is what I want you to do. Don't assume they just know that they're going to do that. I encourage families to have family meetings and talk about screen use and social media. So everyone in the family meets, and it's an open discussion. It's not a democracy. You still are the parents. You still make the rules and the limits, but let them talk about it, hear your reasons for setting a limit. Hear them say things like, Danny, he's allowed to be on till 9 o'clock. His parents don't care. And you have to be prepared to handle that so that it's an open discussion and it's a family discussion. You have to have consequences for misuse. If they misuse social media or their screens, if they give you a hard time, don't slam the laptop down like that woman did in the video, but you take it away. And I always recommend you take it away for one day, just 24 hours. And you say to them, you've lost your phone, you've lost your screens, whatever, until tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Excuse me. And when I give it back to you, if you use it appropriately or if you come off it more cooperatively, whatever rule they broke, then you can keep it. But if you don't, you're going to lose it again. So it's one day for one day. If they're persistently breaking the rules, giving you a hard time, having temper tantrums, I call it stealing time. Kids do, they're unbelievable. Excuse me. What they'll do is, but even parents who have, apps that shut the internet off at a certain time, they know how to circumvent that. And they steal time. And so the app shuts off internet, excuse me, at 7:30 p.m. on a school night. They know ways, believe me, because they tell me, they know ways to steal the time. They know ways to get around that app. So, you have to be really, really savvy when it comes to that. But if they're persistently amusing it, you take it away for an extended period of time. with one of my own children, not with screens, it was with a television. He got a television for his 12-year-old birthday. I thought he could handle it. It's in his room, in his bedroom, I mean, I came up there one night, shortly after he received it for his birthday, and I saw he was doing homework with the television on, which was a rule that we established before. So, I talked to him about it, and then it happened again. I apologized to him, because it started happening persistently. Not every night, but he would sneak it and do his homework in front of the TV. And I said to him, I made a mistake. I thought you were ready to have a television in your room, but I see that you're not ready yet. I'm taking it away. I think I took it away for about 2 to 3 weeks. And I told him how long, and I said, you'll get it back. And if you handle it within the rules and maturely and responsibly, it stays in your room. So I did that. Took it out, put it back in 2 or 3 weeks. It stayed there forever. Never again did he misuse the rules. It's not a right, it's a privilege to have these devices. Don't be afraid to take it away from them. So here's the big finish. So just imagine this, okay? We're talking about a world, our world. There's a lot of negative things happening in our world. COVID has done a number on people, kids as well as adults. Can you imagine if every time your child liked something on social media, that they matched it with a kind comment or gesture in real life to a kid? Can you imagine if every time your son or daughter friended someone on social media, that they included someone that they don't usually include in terms of talking to them, inviting them to sit with them at lunch, whatever? The world would be an even more amazing place if we performed acts of kindness and inclusiveness as frequently as we like and friend online. And that concludes my talk. I hope I was informative. I hope I raised some questions. I'm open for questions or comments. Anybody? Yes, sir. Okay, so I don't know if you all could hear, but the comment was that he's a student, he's a SAC, a student assistant counselor in school here, and there are kids that come to him that have already been teased, bullied, cyberbullied, but it's gone on for a while. They've tolerated it for a while, and they get to the point where I guess they tell you. Okay, the very first thing well, first of all, there's prevention involved in that. We need to educate our kids to not tolerate that it's okay to tell someone right away. That's one of the messages I was sending. So there's a prevention part, but the first thing I say, this is what I said to that 4:30 patient today when he told me about that inappropriate Discord conversation. The very first thing I said to him was, I am so proud of you for telling me that. You want to give them permission, even for the future, that it's okay. Not even, it's better than okay. It's something really sensational that you're doing by talking about it with a responsible adult. And then you go on problem solving with them. What do you think you should do about it? You know, how can we get it to stop? And then eventually you get to, it's a discussion. Next, if it happens again, you need to tell me right away, or your mom or dad right away. Don't wait, because you're hurting. You're hurting so much you couldn't tolerate it anymore. That's why you came to speak to me about it. I don't want that hurt to go on anymore. So you empathize with them, problem solve with them, but of course you tell them, I'm so proud of you for coming to me. It's the very first thing you say. Yeah, I don't know if you could all hear the comment he was making. It's not a new phenomenon that's been going on for a long time, but it's getting a lot of attention right now. People will solicit naked or partially naked pictures of your child, and then either blackmail them, get them to pay them to not post it, or pay them for the pictures. You know, you'll be sitting there thinking, that's silly, that doesn't happen. It happens, and it's happening all the time. You saw that bark little experiment that she made with that 16-year-old fictitious sophomore in high school, and then the 11-year-old. People are out there waiting to prey on your child in any way, and sometimes they're naive. They get not just sexual solicitations and for pictures. You get these also, phishing emails. You've won $500. Just click here, and they get all this information about your child and your family even. So they need education. They just don't know. They just need to be told, coached, made aware that it's not all positive out there. There's some real evil and danger out there. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Similar. There's some things that I don't present to them. Why do you ask? Oh, okay. I was just wondering if you thought there was something inappropriate. Oh, okay. It's very similar. There are certain, like some of this, yeah, the parent part. I tell them what to do. I coach them. Some of the videos are the same. The message is certainly the same. And yes, when your child sees that, they're gonna, you'll be able to understand and relate. Very, very similar, almost identical. Good question. And you're prepared to discuss. That's really, really great. There was another. Yes. Very, Predators, that's yeah. Predators will often put themselves in positions that they are with children or work with children, often. And they could, you probably know better than even I, but I can give you two personal examples, okay? There was a very well-esteemed, popular pediatric neurologist. I referred to him, he referred to me. He was arrested for child pornography, and he's presently in jail. He's a successful, well-known, intelligent pediatric neurologist. I played on this softball team, and there was this guy on the team. He was a little awkward, a little weird. He even threw kind of weird, wasn't a very good player. Well, he was the subject of a sting. Married with, he had one child, a daughter. She was a teenager at the time. And so he started communicating with this 14-year-old. And the 14-year-old said, and he said, let's meet. And they scheduled to meet someplace in a park in Morristown. And guess what? That 14-year-old was a police officer. And he was arrested. He had to move out of town, and I don't know what happened after that. It's people you know. You don't even know. You don't even know. But it is more pervasive than you really realize, and your kids need to be made aware of it to be safe. But thank you. Anybody else? Any other comments, questions? Okay, great. Thank you very, very much for coming. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for learning.